Hello.
Hello, Bruno.
Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
Good to see you.
Yes. Well, usually it's nicer and warmer and better in LA. But anyway, it's that's life. Glad to see you. And well, I wish you all a success for the 41st edition. Am I
Ah,
correct?
you've been reading Jennifer. Very good. You've been reading Jennifer's press releases. I'm
Yes.
impressed.
Well, I get a few. Yes. So
Everything
I'm
well there?
well. Yeah,
Family,
we
friends,
we
everybody
we
okay?
totally locked down, here. So thank God the industry is not totally at a still point because films are continuing. Filming is on. Of course, all theaters are closed, but at least we have some kind of activity. It's only temporary. Let's cross some fingers.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. I've
Yeah.
been, I've only eaten in a restaurant once since the 1st of March.
Hmm. Yeah. I know the feeling.
Uh,
It's dreadful.
Terrible.
So speaking of figures, if I did my research correctly, that should be your 23rd edition or 24th. I understand you started running AFM in 98
So my
for
first was
IFTA.
99. So let's count 99, 2000,
Oh,
today's, and then 20, this would be 23rd because we
yeah,
did two in 2004.
probably the most peculiar. And do you think, was it the hardest to pull out? The hardest?
2004, two? No, there was the only new thing or difficult part was the messaging to make sure that the industry was really on board with the change. And of course, some of the Italians had difficulty adapting the first year. But we knew from the beginning, it was sort of like VHS and beta. We knew from the beginning that this would succeed. Um, it was a little easier in that we work with a lot of great people who work with us for 4 or 5 or 6 months, and then they're off to other gigs and they come back. This way we could keep them on board all the way through. And so from an education standpoint, from training, from institutional knowledge, we could go into the November market in a stronger position. This is back in 2004. So
Yeah, if I may ask a few words about the IFTA, the state. I understand your organization has some 140 members from 23 countries or so. Do you see any trend in those figures? Is that figure changing, growing, new members, new countries recently?
it's been growing. It's been growing the last few years, and I think that's because more and more countries are producing film and television that export. If you follow over the last 20 years or so, um, uh, there were industry or countries rather where they really didn't have film industries. They had television, which had been born in the 80s and 90s after deregulation, and they no longer have 3 channels; they have 300. And then film industries came forward, and then as their film got better, it started to travel. And IFTA is really a distributors or an exporters trade group. So as companies found that they were testing the waters from an export standpoint, they started to join. So we've actually seen membership increase over the last 2 or 3 years.
What would be the breakdown importance of US members versus?
I don't have the numbers in front of me. Clearly, we're dominated in maybe
Yeah.
60% US. But if you look, frankly, at the film markets, Cannes and AFM, you'll see a similar mix. There's still more companies in the U.S. exporting than the rest of the world, but the balance is slowly changing. For example, if you look at India, we sometimes have 2 sales companies at the AFM, and we have no members from India. They produce 1,000 wonderful films
Yeah.
a year, but they're so they can succeed with 1 billion people. Um, and so they produce for the local market or the national market, I should say. And so we don't see members from India, and we rarely see really exporters at Cannes or AFM. They have a very small presence given the size of their country.
Yeah, the I from IFTA, IFTA, stands for independent. How do you define independent? And did you
It's
ever
written very
were in
well.
the, sorry,
Go ahead.
did you have you ever been in a position to say to refuse a membership because you believed the company was not independent in your by your definitions?
Absolutely not. While we call ourselves the Independent Film and Television Alliance, the qualifications for membership are objective. They're not subjective. It isn't a committee deciding like a club. In the United States, trade groups must have very clear black and white criteria for membership. And if you qualify, you are in, full stop. And if you don't, you are not. There's no in between. And for IFTA, membership means that you are actively engaged in export from your home country and that you have some experience in having done that. So the major studios qualify for membership, but they have no interest in joining because they have their own trade group.
Yeah. Similarly, have you ever had to turn down a request for participation in the market for some company? I wouldn't see
No.
any reason, but except if they haven't paid the previous years, of course. But
Well, of course, and we do have a market rule that any company that has been convicted of piracy can be barred from the market, and so this happens. And we also have an arbitration process. If between buyers and sellers, if they choose IFTA arbitration, if they choose the arbitration, and if there is an actual dispute, and if it goes through arbitration, and if the party that does not prevail refuses to abide by the arbitrator's decision, the prevailing party can request that they be barred from the market. And this happens maybe once every year or two, that a company will prevail in a market, in an arbitration, and the other party just refuses to do what the arbitrator says. And to support our arbitration process a little, they can request that the company be barred from the market. But we haven't done that in a couple of years, and it's maybe every other year it happens.
right. Well, I've had a bad experience. I was in a partnership with Can Market. Of course, different story, a company didn't pay a bill that was 32,000 euros jointly owed to the market and ourselves. And of course, they have been blacklisted from Cannes. They have never appeared again because, well, you have to pay your bills. It's very simple. Speaking of the arbitration from the IFTA, what is the process cheaper than the standard AAA administration in the US, which I understand is pretty expensive? And how is your arbitration working?
It's a little less, but I'm going to defer other questions on this to Jean Pruitt. The arbitration program isn't in my portfolio.
Yeah.
Other than give you some top level things that the information's on the website as well, but it's slightly less expensive than AAA. AAA is still not that expensive. For those listening around the world, I believe it's the Arbitration Association of America. AAA stands for, and it's a less expensive manner than going to court, and usually much quicker. And the purpose of our arbitration, when it was set up decades ago, was to make sure that the arbitrators were well briefed in the film industry. If you have an arbitrator or a judge who only knows about petrochemicals or real estate, they may not understand the nuances. So we have dozens of arbitrators around the world who are all well versed in the industry.
Yeah, very smart. Now, going back to online markets, unfortunately, the new rule for the COVID 2020, what did you learn from Can Market Online, and what changes did that inspire?
Well, I think the most important thing is we are extremely grateful that Can went first. I would have not wanted to have been in Jerome's situation. Are they going to be on site in Cannes? Not in Cannes. They can then be in May and June. They were caught in the very beginning of this in a very, very difficult situation. And the fact that they pulled it off as well as they did in such a short period is just a tribute to Jerome and his team. We had a little bit, I wouldn't call it a luxury, because we take a year to plan the AFM, and we had 4 months, but 4 months is longer than Jerome and his team had. So we had a little bit more of a luxury to watch what they did and maybe do some things exactly as they did and some things a little different. In general, I think what we're both doing, what they did and what we're doing, the most important thing is frankly defining the date to say, here's a week and the industry from all over the world is going to pause and they're going to focus on the business of film. Wherever the buyer is around the world, they're not on holiday for that week. They're not planning other meetings. They're available to meet with sales companies. And the same with the sales companies. They're all focused on bringing their projects to market. That's the most important thing a market does, because it creates that sense of urgency and it gets everybody in one place at one time. In terms of, there are many things that Cannes did that we liked that we are emulating. A couple things that we're doing a little different. We learned from our members who are all sales companies, most of them didn't use the Cannes platform for video discussions. They did not want to learn another platform. They didn't want to have their senior executives trying to figure out how another platform worked. They stayed in Zoom, in Skype, in Rights Trade, and other industry-specific platforms. And the Cannes meeting platform was primarily used by those in the production community and film commissions and others like that to connect and schedule the meeting right there. So we went forward offering no platform for the sales companies and buyers to connect. Instead, creating a way for the buyers and sellers to find each other and decide what platform they wanted to have a specific meeting on, and each company could tailor it. The other thing that we're doing different is Cannes had its screenings as appointments. If a film was screening at 10 a.m. in London, it would also screen at 10 a.m. local time in Los Angeles. We're making our films available on demand. And so the seller can decide what days they screen, but if it's screening on a day, it's screening 24 hours the entire day everywhere in the world, not just at an appointment. Again, listening to some of the sales companies, we felt that this made it easier for the buyers and they could take advantage of what, there's some things that online can actually do better than in person. And not a lot, but some things are better. And from a scheduling standpoint, if we can say the film is going to play for 24 hours, it's very different than saying it's playing at the ArcLight Theater in Santa Monica at 11 o'clock in the morning only. And if you miss it, you never see it during the market. And so this gives a greater opportunity to the buyers and sellers to actually, have the film seen. And so those are a couple things that we're doing different. We took a slightly different approach than Jerome's, but it's not so much that we thought he did something, the Cannes did something that was wrong. We just, sometimes you have a different flavor. And we took one that was really, if you will, object-based. And by that I mean, we didn't want participants to feel like they were navigating a website when they came to the AFM. We looked at dozens of platforms from providers all over the world who specialized in events or festivals and could do different things for us. And what almost all of them had in common was you were first navigating a website and you were second participating in an event. You'd have menus and submenus and drop downs and searches and all these various things. For me, it was sort of like being in a theater and having somebody turn up the lights while the movie's playing. I'm forgetting about the experience and I'm more aware of my surroundings. And so we took an approach of creating a map with different buildings. You touch the map or touch the building on a map and you're immediately off to a different area of the market. You're off to your screenings, you're off to see the sales companies, you're off to see the film commissions, you're off to see one of the two stages where there are speakers, or our networking pavilion, which we're really excited about.
Yeah,
if you like, I could share
my understand totally. So if you can expand a little bit on this one.
Did you give me the ability to share screen?
Yes. Well, hold on.
Okay. Let's see if I can.
I think I did.
Let's see if I can. let's see if I can do this. I don't know what will show here. Just a second. Here we go.
Right.
Let's see. Here's the AFM map.
Yes.
And so just bring this up to full screen. And as you see, I move my mouse around, and I can go to the different buildings. If I go here, I'm only going to click on one building to show you what happens. But if I click on the industry offices, I will see all the sales company pages. Immediately, I will see all the pages of the companies that are participating, and I can search from them by the types of films they're bringing or by their name. A similar building, when I click here, you go to Location Expo and you see the film commissions and facilities. MyAFM is somewhat of a traditional site. This is where the participants, mostly the production community, put in their own profile, their photo, the films that they hope to make one day, their social media, and this is where they can search the list of participants, and they can do in this platform one-to-one Zoom meetings as well.
How long have you been having the MyAFM? Like 4 or 5 years or so?
MyAFM is about 10 years old, but we've enhanced it this year. It didn't have Zoom meetings before, and so it has the Zoom meetings in it now.
Right.
And then the 2 stages when you visit here, we will have sessions going every 90 minutes on each stage, 72 sessions I think we have scheduled. The wonderful thing about this, Bruno, is we have speakers from all over the world. Instead of just speakers who are in Santa Monica, we have a session that's originating in New Zealand, one in Nigeria, one in South Africa, another in Paris, BFI in London. We have sessions all over the world. The quality of speakers and the diversity of the speakers is just unheard of for us compared to a normal market where everybody had to be on a stage in Santa Monica. We're just really excited about what we're able to do here.
I didn't see many from China. Sorry to interrupt, Jonathan.
No, we didn't. I think there's a time zone issue, a little bit's language and a little time zone.
Yeah.
We're seeing not the same, and Cannes saw something similar, that there just wasn't the same participation from Asia in either of these. And then the last building that of course, the on-demand theater. This is where all the films will be. I think we're approaching 400 films that will be here. You click here and you're automatically off to a screen that shows you all of the cards for each of the films. Right. So there really isn't a lot of navigating. You click on something and there you are. The networking building is a very interesting one. And I'm going to click on this one. Oh, I need to go through it to a different way. Sorry, it's closed for the rest of the world. Here we go. When you click on the networking building, you arrive at a floor. And these are all of the tables on the floor. If you see here, I am over here. Yeah. You can see me. I click on my name and you can see who I am.
Sure.
Now this floor is empty right now. So we're in an empty ballroom and you can see all of the tables. When the ballroom is filled, each of these tables will have different topics. This one might say micro-budget horror. This one might say French documentary.
Are you selecting the topics and welcoming people? Or? Right.
Yes, we are going to select most of the topics, and then participants can send us a note and say, can you reserve a table for, I don't know, London Producers Meetup.
Film Festival Strategy.
And so when I turn on my camera, you can see here I am up above.
Right.
All of the participants at the table would be in the same way. Now I could be bigger as well or smaller, but you notice over here, I'm going to jump to another floor. I'm going to jump up. Now I'm on yet another floor. In the networking building, we will have 10 floors, more than 100 tables with conversations going on each time. So if you imagine, I guess my best analogy is if you walked into a big networking party and there were hundreds and hundreds of people and you didn't know anyone and you kept walking up to different groups and they were talking about things that didn't interest you, and you could spend 2 hours at a party and never meet anybody that was relevant to you. Yeah. And then you imagine the same party and there's a sign above every conversation telling you what they're talking about. So you can immediately walk over to who interests you. So this is where networking can actually be more efficient online. We are going to have close to 100 topics that are posted, and you can drop by the table. And as also from a geography standpoint, if you're from Russia, that doesn't mean you know everybody there from Russia. There's a table for Russia. You could drop by and see who else sometimes the best connections are the people you didn't know who are right down the street from you. And so this is just going to be very exciting. I'm going to end my screen share.
Nice. Yeah.
But for us, this was important. I've used this word a few times in the last few weeks to bring the serendipity of a live event to an online event, that where you accidentally bump into somebody. We can all send invites and will you meet with me and who's writing to me and let me see their CV and do I want to talk to them or not. Sometimes we all say no too often. And then we find that we're just walking down the street and we're chatting with somebody or sitting at a bar and find out that that's just a great conversation. So this is what we hope to gain from this networking pavilion.
Yeah, I think what you built from networking looks very exciting indeed and interesting, because there's so many people that are beyond the simple thing of buying and selling, but also with something different on their agenda. I need a partner on this. I need to understand how, I don't know, blockchain or you name it. I need an expert, blah, blah, blah. So it looks like a smart way. And also I like what you said about the serendipity in those markets. You make a lot of business, like just bumping into someone in the elevator. Oh, by the way, we need to talk about this. We need to meet. And that looks something...
it's going to be fun, and I'm sure that we will finish the market and learn lots of things that we wished we would have done that we maybe can do the next year, because this is the first time we're testing it. But I will tell you that both CAN and AFM, the majority of the people participate are not buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
Buyers and sellers, depending on the market, make up 30%, 33%. 2/3 of the participants are there because they're part of the production community. Producers, writers, film commissions, production facilities, lawyers, bankers, agents, all those who bring films forward. And while the buying and selling is the core of both markets, the audiences that we spend most of our time serving tend to be those are in the production community.
Yeah. What I like here is it seems you've learned from Cannes and taken a little bit of the fancy they tried to put in the event, the online market for Cannes, where probably being scared of going 100% remote, they added some elements of fun, party here, do this, like music, concert, and I understand why they did this, because we were all hit by COVID, and we did not want to just put the knee down and all of that. But I personally didn't like that. I thought it was not relevant, not necessary. And anyway, so.
Well, we are going to have music also. We will have a closing night party, but more on that later.
Yeah, well, I to be honest, I did take part to it, but yeah, well, for me, what I want to say is you don't have to build everything pretending you're alive. I mean, because you're not. So just going back to the basic, to the elements, and trying to do what you just described sounds fair. Now, talking about the audience, if I remember well, last year you had almost 7,000, like 6,964. That's what your website says.
You have a better memory than I do.
No, I just read it. So what do you expect? Can the figure be as big for you? Do you think it can be as big this year?
I don't think so. We'll see when it's all in. People are registering while we're speaking. We will definitely have more buyers and sellers. We have crossed 500 exhibitors at the market now. We're approaching 1,500 buyers, and so this is much higher in both categories.
Yeah, I have for my audience, the figures from last year exhibitor was 375. I spotted 527 on your current listing of exhibitors, which is pretty good.
I haven't kept track. I know it crossed 500, and I just said, don't tell me till the end of the week. It's just
well, sorry.
It's growing, and the buyers are continuing to grow as well. The production community, where we focus a lot of these activities, there it's a little more difficult because there's one thing that we're not offering. You know, when we talk about it, maybe improve networking, it will definitely be much more interesting and broader education. But the thing you can't do in the online market is you can't walk into a sales company office where the producer could go door to door. They could identify the 20 companies that their project might be right for, and to try and meet with the sales company to see if there's interest in the company representing their film. That's very, very difficult to do online. You send an email, and the company would look at the email and say, okay, that's nice. Either we're not interested and they don't reply, or they reply, talk to you in a week or two when the market is over. You don't have that ability to walk right in the door. And so for some of the participants, the production community participants who are solely participating from a transactional standpoint, they are only there to sell something. I think some of them have pulled back and are not participating. And frankly, during the AFM in Santa Monica, that's usually the group that is least satisfied. If you go to Cannes or you go to AFM and all your focus is I'm going to sell something. Everybody I talk to, I'm just going to tell about my script over and over and over, and you do nothing else. You have the most unhappy experience unless you have that small chance that someone actually expressed interest and bought the script. Most understand that when you go to an event, it's for a broad range of reasons. And much of it is for meeting people. It's for networking, developing relationships, marketplace intelligence. I've met producers that come to the FM that said, I have no film right now, but I want to see what's working, so I want to know what to develop. I mean, if somebody went in the marketplace right now, they'd say you'd probably stay away from horror. The world is so scary right now, people are just not watching horror films the way they might have a year or two ago. Will it pick up again? We'll see. But the kind of marketplace intelligence, all the things that you can learn, networking, education, marketplace, transaction is just a piece. And unfortunately, when some come to Cannes and AFM, they only have that transaction hat on and they become disappointed. And I think those who are only transaction focused may not be as interested in the online event because they can't just push their way into an office.
Yeah, just maybe a stupid question, I don't know, perhaps. I see in Sinendo, I see 760 buyers registered or listed for AFM. Your figure is 1,500. Where are
Probably
they?
just a delay. We push our data over. Also, it's close to 1,500, but they not all may have a Sinando account. So if they don't have the Sinando account, they need to establish their Sinando account. Sinando won't do that for them. And so part of it's a delay, but the sales companies have the list directly from us. They don't have to go to to Sinando to see it.
All right. But someone, a buyer who registered with the free pass, and I'm sure they're happy about that, the fact that it was free this year, they get the listing as well on Sinendo for 1 year. So basically,
if they get the listing if they did not have a Sinando account. Yeah. If they already have a Sinando account because they were participating in Cannes, then it doesn't add another year to them.
So that tells me that probably half of these buyers that will be at your place are people that are kind of reluctant to.
No, I think this is just a delay. We send information to them. They have to process some of this by hand, and so I think by the time we get near the opening of the market, you'll see that number continue to grow.
And the other surprise, because we could understand why last year there were few people from China. I see in your exhibitors listing only 6 companies. It sounds strange. Why? What's happening to the market there?
Well, the first thing that we talked to some of our members around both the Cannes market and AFM, and they even our members in Hong Kong felt that given the time difference and given the films that they were selling, they didn't think that the online market was as interesting for them. And so, Chinese films coming from the mainland has always been somewhat of a tough sell from an export standpoint. And a lot of the times when they have space in Cannes or AFM, there may be government support. It may be the Beijing filmmakers. I forgot what they call it. There's an association of companies that have government support, and the government may not be supportive of an online event. That they're supportive of travel or they're supportive of a booth, but not necessarily of an online. And you can look at the flip side, and we have 40 companies from Italy coming, where inside the Lowe's, we might have less than 20. So now you have a different situation where companies, where the economics just don't make sense for them to travel. The library they have, the film that they have, it doesn't make sense to travel, but to participate in an online market, absolutely. So we're seeing growth in some areas, and as you note, some pullback in others.
I also spotted the kind of small, relatively low figure for France participation. Is that because some of them went to the other competitive event by the US talent agencies? And
no, I haven't looked at the France numbers, so sorry, I'm not briefed on that for you. No, just to talk about what the
19 companies only. That's not a lot.
Sorry?
19 companies.
Yeah, and Unifrance usually has about 12, and then we see another 6 or 7, having their own space. And so that may be about what we tend to see. I'd have to look. But in terms of what the talent agencies are doing, what they're doing during our market and what they did during Cannes is frankly no different than what they've done over the last 10 years at the physical markets, which is they do presentations. They frequently bring directors and talent to those presentations, and it's an invited short list of buyers who come in. They schedule those presentations so that they don't overlap. There's a collegial approach between the talent agencies and some of the large sales companies to make sure that they don't have competing presentations. They've been doing this in Cannes for years. They've been doing it at AFM. So when they moved online, they went and are essentially doing the same thing. The only difference is they decided to put a label on it called market. And that's really not so. It's a series of presentations. The majority of the companies that are participating in their presentations are also listed in exhibitors at the AFM. And so they may be doing their 3-hour presentation or their 30-minute presentation, but most of what they're doing is what the rest of the sales companies are doing, which is meeting with buyers throughout the week.
Somehow the way the communication about this is handled looks like it was aimed as a blow to Cannes, a blow to AFM, like a competition.
Well,
and although
it
was not clear nor very elaborate in terms of communication from their side.
Well, the agents, let's remember, agents only have one mission in life, and that's to present their client in the best light possible and get their client's film sold or get their client booked on a film. And how do you do that? You need to say that your event, if you're going to have one, is better than someone else's event. Your actor is better than someone else's actor. Your script is better than someone else's script. They're salesmen. This is what they do. And there's nothing wrong with that. So what you saw around Cannes, what you see a little bit around AFM, is that salesmanship. And they just decided to put a label on that salesmanship called market. And I find it, frankly, just a little goofy.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
It doesn't seem very relevant.
Well, if it works for those companies, it's fine. We have no objection, to it all. They've adopted our dates as they did with Cannes. So the whole industry is focused on doing business, and that really is where we started out. I think in talking about the most important thing that Cannes and AFM can do is define a week where the industry pauses and focuses on the business of film.
Yeah. So maybe to finish with a few questions about your lineup of conferences and panels. And I read like 200 speakers and 70 live sessions. That's clearly much more than last year, it seems to me.
Yeah, last year we were up to 52 sessions, and that was a record for us. And that was 52 sessions I was on 3 stages with everyone coming to Santa Monica. The fact that we can get over 70 sessions and compress it only into 5 days, I'm just very excited to see how this all turns out.
Yeah, that's clearly the bonus from the online factor.
Right.
And also something that is very tempting to reproduce and continue in the next year, maybe, like having more.
We'll see. My crystal ball is good for about 2 weeks, about as good as the weather forecast. So we will all have to wait and see what we're doing next year. I have no idea.
Right. Is to your knowledge, is anything happening physically during the market?
No, nothing that we are organizing, and I doubt anyone else is.
I have a thought for the Loews and feel a bit sorry for them. Must be a big blow. Are they still
Well,
open?
all the hotels around the world. Look at the Carlton. You know, it's closed. You know, it's everywhere.
So I'm sorry, I'm putting you in front of your crystal ball again for 2022, 21. Sorry, let's stay reasonable. And let's make a bet that we've been able to find vaccines and stuff, and so that you're going physical again, as you've been for 41 editions. Any things you really want to do that you have been doing in the past, or any ideas for new features or new activities on the networking area or something? I don't know.
Yes, I'll answer the question slightly different, and which is, I believe that if we are all healthy, everyone who wants to travel can travel. Let's just take that assumption for this discussion. I have no idea if that will be true. There will still be, I believe, an online component to the AFM. And here's why. If I can just tell a little bit of a story. From time to time, I'll walk through the Lowe's lobby the second or third day, and I will meet people coming for the first day. A buyer from Greece, a buyer from Turkey, and I'll say, you're arriving on the third day. Why? Why not the first day? And the answer will be that the sales companies are meeting with the biggest buyers from the biggest countries the first 2 days. I can't get a good meeting anyways. So I come later and I stay later because they have more time for me later in the market. So the market shifts over time. Some people are participating early, some late. Producers come to the market. They usually don't come till the fourth day, third or fourth day, because they know the sales companies don't have time for them. Then park that thought for a minute and then look at countries where they're small enough, or the companies are small, that they can't afford, it doesn't make business sense to go to AFM and Berlin and Cannes every year. It just doesn't work. They have to choose one, or they need to choose the other, but they're left out because they can't go to every one. What we see is a way of embracing both of those groups that I've just mentioned by having both a physical and an online market. But this is the important part, not concurrent. Concurrent online events, hybrid events, don't work. It's impossible for a sales company who's participating online to connect with a buyer who's walking through the Lowe's. Similarly, a seller with an office in the Lowe's is not about to block a schedule for someone who's sitting on the couch in the middle of the night talking online when a buyer has just walked in the office and says, I have 15 minutes, can we meet? It just doesn't work. And so what we're looking at is having a sequential market, which is the first week, it's a physical market in AFM, the way that we've all known, probably a little bit smaller, with the sessions, followed by a weekend break, which picks up again online the following Monday. So if you are a smaller company, you may know that the sales companies will now be setting aside that time to meet with you very specifically. Maybe it's only 3 or 4 days online, maybe it isn't a full 5 days. A time to meet with you. If you're a producer who couldn't travel, well, the sessions from the market in Santa Monica were still available to watch on demand the next week, and there is new content because now we're going to have all the speakers from the rest of the world who couldn't come to Santa Monica. There's also the networking pavilion, as we've seen, all the films on demand that the buyers who couldn't travel to Santa Monica could see. But we do know that there's a significant portion of our industry that needs to meet face-to-face. They want that marketplace intelligence. They want to hear the pitch in person. And then there's that portion who some years, or most years sometimes, can't travel. So I see a market that's 4 to 5 days long in Santa Monica, a break, and then more participants joining in the second week for the online portion.
I like that, Jonathan. I like that. One question, though, is about the screenings. The virtue of physical screening versus online screening. It's hard to say, but I mean, the common thinking would be saying, well, we prefer physical screening because it's a big screen and that's the way it's supposed to be consumed. But things are shifting. It's hard to have an opinion on that, actually.
Well, my opinion is this. Everybody's selling wants their product presented in the best light. If you go to an auto show, they've made the lights just in the right spot and they're polishing the car every hour. If you come to a film market, you want it on a big screen. You've made sure the color matches right, that the bulb and the screen gain are appropriately for your film. You want it to look perfect. But the fact is that we're screening for professional buyers, and they know what is commercially acceptable. Yes, the seller wants to show it the best way possible. The buyer is not so concerned. And so, yes, the physical market will take place where the bigger buyers who are spending more money will want to see it on the bigger screen. And the smaller buyers who may not be able to travel accept the fact that they can still put it in their office on an 80 or 90-inch screen and watch the film in a manner that could be similar to much of their audience, but at least gives them the information they need as to whether they want to acquire the film. So I think we still have both.
Right. Last question. What do you expect from the media and from the trades, and how do you think their job will be affected by this new form of the market compared to what they did in the past?
Well, of course, everything the media is doing at events now is difficult because they can't go door to door. They have to, by Zoom, by phone, by email, talk. So they'll have challenges. It'll be interesting to see, how all that works for them.
Yeah. So last year, I believe we did 300 articles about the IFM or so. It's probably going to be a smaller figure this year because of what it is. But I want to thank you very much, Jonathan, for sharing with us, with filmfestivals.com audience, and look forward to seeing you in physically soon, with a glass.
I will bring my bottle of wine if we were in Cannes and join you and your festival colleagues.
Oh yeah, that one, the wine tasting. Yeah, I love that one. Yes. Oh, by the way, do you know that unfortunately the first edition we did with my partner Malo, you probably heard he passed away.
Oh, I did, and I'm very sorry.
Malo Giraud-Delin, who founded with me in 2000, just passed a few months ago. Yeah.
Sorry.
But he was no longer really involved in the film business. He was very much into art and had launched a platform based for digital art using the blockchain. So he was. Anyway, thank you so much, Jonathan, and
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Yes.
Stay healthy.
Yes, thanks. Same to you and your family.
Bye-bye.
Take care.